guys, welcome back to Advanced Bass Fishing, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel for today's episode. We are going to be having a conversation on shade today and how shade affects bass, how bass use shade or don't use shade, because it changes throughout the course of the year, and at different times of the year shade's more important based upon a lot of different variables. So I'm going to isolate, guys, what those variables are, and sometimes you don't want to be in the shade and sometimes you do want to be in the shade, so we're going to discuss that in today's episode here. Also, guys, before we get started, our daily housekeeping tips to keep the channel on YouTube here that I really appreciate you guys putting up with. Quick reminder, guys, Tackle Warehouse has got all my Blaukat Throwback jigs back in stock now. They've been selling out really, fast all summer long. Back in stock, guys. We got 7 different colors, 3 different sizes. I'll put my Throwback jig link in the description of the video. And also, guys, you've heard me talking about this. If you haven't, Cast King, who I've been working with for the last 6 months, has got this Patriot special rod and reel outfit for sale right now. It's got this Royal Legend bait cast reel, 7-foot 3-inch medium heavy rod, super cool looking red, white, and blue colors, guys. And they also make a nice spinning combo in the same color pattern here. High quality, guys. This is tournament grade equipment. So I'll put the Cast King link in the description of this video if you guys would like to pick one of these up, along with any of the other Cast King reels. And if you use that promo code of mine, Randy10, you get additional discount on that, so really appreciate that. Okay, guys, we talk about shade some on the channel here, but I really want to get into it today because, we're in the middle of summer right now, and shade is really critical in the summertime. But what I want to do is I sort of want to give you guys sort of a foundational little seminar here on shade. I'll talk about, just briefly touch on it throughout the course of the year, about its effect on bass, how much it affects them, if it doesn't affect them, and that type of thing. Because based upon 2 different main factors, which is water clarity and water temperature, shade can actually be a necessity for catching fish, or it can be a negative to catching fish. So let's talk a little bit about that. Okay, first of all, in general, this is what you're going to have. I like to lay out extremes here. The dirtier and the dirtier the water, the colder the water, or the cloudier the conditions are, that is when shade plays less of effect. In fact, shade can be a negative. So let's say, for example, if you're fishing early spring, water temperature is around 50 degrees, and you got water visibility is pretty dirty, around 10 or 12 inches, and you got a cloudy day. You don't want to be in shade in that type of a situation. It's actually going to hurt you. And on the other end of the spectrum, if you have warm, clear water, shade is very critical during those conditions, and everything else sort of in between there. The gradients are in between. So when you break that down into a seasonal type of a situation, here's how it looks for me most of the time. I go a lot by water temperature for shade. If that water temperature is below 50 degrees, like, wintertime fishing, between like December, early February, shade to me is it can be a negative. In fact, I don't really like it. I like to fish in those areas that are a little bit brighter. They have a little bit more light penetration. Seems like the fish are a little bit more active under those conditions. So when I see a shady bank or something like that when it's cold in the wintertime, I sort of stay away from it. I'm sort of focusing on those areas that are getting hit by the sun, maybe warming up a little bit, and it seems like I catch more fish. You start to notice a change in that in about the mid part of March, when that water temperature starts getting into the mid to upper 50s. Once that water temperature starts getting into the mid to upper 50s, and this is going to last all the way from spring, summer, and into fall, anytime that water temperature is mid to upper 50s, pushing on 60 degrees, shade becomes a factor in your fishing. And shade can actually be beneficial based upon what you're doing. If you're fishing reaction lures, like moving baits, like crankbaits, spinner baits, chatterbaits, topwaters, you always want to focus, if you can, on shady type areas if that water temperature is over 55 or 60 degrees, especially if it starts to get over 70 degrees. That's going to be really, really critical. The warmer it gets and the clearer it gets, the more you really have to focus on shade. Now, let me give you a prime example of what I'm talking about, guys. One of my favorite ways to catch bass in the summertime of year is fishing rocky banks with a square bill crankbait. I catch a lot of fish doing that. Now, I can usually do pretty good on a square bill crankbait about the first 2 or 3 hours of the day because I can run shady banks. It's like the sun's still low, And I can, based upon the angle of the bank, I can run some areas that have shade anywhere between 10 to 20 foot off the bank. As that sun gets up towards 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, you start to lose that shade line. So I've got one specific bank, I remember at Table Rock Lake, guys, that I fish every year. I can catch fish on it up until about 9:30 in the morning. And about 9:30 in the morning, it's shady up until 9:30 in the morning. I can fish that square bill crankbait down that shady bank and catch them. As soon as I lose my shade, like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, something like that, those fish are impossible to catch. I cannot catch them on a square bill crankbait. But if I come back there later in the afternoon, like around 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and that shade is returned to that bank, those fish are right back up on it. So if you have a shady bank when that water temperature is warmer and clearer like that, those fish will move in and out with that shade. They actually use the shade line as cover. It's darker in the shade. They feel more secure, and they're always going to seek out the shade with that. Now, like I said, in general, you're going to find shade to be really critical on any type of reaction bait. Not so much in a slow bait. Now, it can help a slow bait because the area I'm talking about, like at Table Rock, I could catch them on a jig or a shaky head or something like that in the shade too, but it's not that critical because when you have shade, those fish are a lot more apt to want to chase and leave their target they're on. It's like, say for example, if it's shady, you have a shady bank and you've got a log in 5 foot of water. If it's shady out, that bass is a lot more apt to swim away from that log looking for food and attacking your reaction baits. But if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and there's no shade and they're hunkered down on that log, the only way you can catch them is like a slow bait that comes right next to that log. Now, sometimes shade can hurt you even in the cleaner, warmer water because let's say, for example, you're fishing, like some really, really dirty water in a deal like that. If you're fishing really muddy, dirty water in the summertime of the year, it can be the same thing. It's like that can be a negative, being in the shade, but it's got to be really dirty. But most of the time, what I look for with my slow baits is I'm looking for shade ambush points around targets up in the day. So let's say, for example, up around 11 o'clock or noon, I've got some boat docks, and the boat docks, sun's up overhead and you start to get shade underneath these boat docks. Those fish are always going to be in that shade area, in those areas. So you can really isolate them a little bit more from shade. And also shade becomes more important based upon your light intensity, because you can have, like today, guys, I don't know if you can see out there right now, we got a bright, super bright bluebird day out there. The light intensity is really, really strong. It's like if you go out right now without sunglasses, it's sort of blinding. That's on one extreme, but you can also have a sunny day like this, and the atmosphere may be a little bit thicker. It's not quite so clear. You can have maybe some like thin, wispy cirrus clouds, or maybe, just particulate in the atmosphere or whatever, and it tones that down a little bit. Also, different sun angle, because the sun angle is at a different period every month. The sun angle in December on a bank is completely different than like in June or July. Main thing with that is there are very few situations, guys, where shade is not critical. Overall, if you could look at the whole experience, you're going to have a lot more success if you concentrate in the shade more than not. And shade is a great pattern to run. It's like I've done good in a lot of tournaments by just doing nothing but running the pattern of shady banks. And I'll look for them, and some banks hold shade longer than others. Like if you're on a bluffy type bank, it may stay shady most of the day. I mean, it may stay shady up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon until the sun gets it just at a right angle. So based upon where you're fishing and how banks are positioned, you can a lot of times just run shade pattern all day. So anyway, guys, just a few overall thoughts about it. Like I said, it's one of those things that everybody has to, incorporate into fishing. It's like learning how to fish on a rainy day. Everybody's got to learn how to do that. Same with shade in there. So anyway, I hope it helps out, guys. We'll talk later.